Think for a moment about the paradox of silence. In a world where people rush to announce everything they do, to broadcast their lives as if validation itself is a form of sustenance, the idea of deliberately withholding, of restraining yourself, feels almost unnatural. But here's the truth. The discipline of silence builds a kind of strength that cannot be fabricated or faked. It's not loud. It's not immediately visible. It doesn't need to be. Because silence, real silence, is where character is carved, where resilience is tested, and where the roots of greatness reach down deep into the soil before anyone ever sees the bloom above the surface. And if you look around at the world carefully, you'll notice something fascinating. The people who talk the loudest about what they're going to achieve rarely achieve much at all. Why? Because they've already traded the satisfaction of achievement for the cheap dopamine of attention. They've cashed out too early. And once that energy is spent on words, it doesn't fuel the actions required to actually get the thing done. But when you discipline yourself to work in silence, something profound begins to take shape. You start detaching from the shallow need for recognition, and you start focusing on the deeper need for mastery. See, silence is not merely the absence of noise. It is the presence of discipline. It is choosing to pour every ounce of energy into the work itself rather than the performance of work. Think of an athlete who trains when the stadium is empty, the crowd isn't there, the cameras aren't on, there's no one to clap or criticize, and yet that's when the real battle is fought. Because when no one is watching, it's easier to quit. It's easier to tell yourself that no one will notice if you skip this one repetition, this one session, this 1 hour. But the silence keeps a record. The silence remembers. The silence measures you against yourself. And in those lonely, silent hours, you either forge resilience or you abandon it. This is why silence is a crucible. It strips away external validation and forces you to confront the only judge that truly matters, yourself. And that confrontation is uncomfortable because there are no excuses to hide behind, no applause to trick you into believing you've accomplished more than you have. There is only the mirror of your own effort staring back at you. And if you can face that honestly, if you can keep working, even when no one sees, no one claps, no one cares, that is when strength begins to compound. It's like compound interest. Small investments of effort made consistently, quietly in the dark, begin to multiply over time until one day the returns are staggering. Now think about the psychology of noise for a moment. Why do people talk so much about what they're going to do? Why do they declare their plans publicly before the work is finished? It's because talking gives them a counterfeit sense of accomplishment. The moment you announce your goal to the world, you receive validation, attention, maybe even admiration, and that feels good. It feels so good, in fact, that your brain mistakes it for progress. But it isn't progress, it's the illusion of progress. The energy that should be used to execute gets dissipated in the act of announcing, and so people remain trapped in this cycle. Talk, receive attention, feel good, do little, repeat. They never break through because they've become addicted to the applause of words instead of the substance of results. But you, if you are to rise above the ordinary, if you are to shock the world with your success, you must understand that silence isn't weakness. It's strength in disguise. It's patience married with discipline. It's the refusal to let the world feed on your energy before it has borne fruit. Think of it this way. A tree doesn't announce its growth underground. The roots don't shout as they spread deeper into the earth. They do their work in silence, unseen. But without those silent roots, the tree could never withstand the storms when they come, and they always come. Without roots, there is no stability, no endurance. Without roots, the tree falls at the first sign of struggle, and you are no different. Your silent work, those unglamorous, unseen, repetitive efforts, are the roots of your success. If they are shallow, your life will collapse under the weight of difficulty. If they are deep, you will stand unshaken. This leads us to the second truth, one that people often forget. Success speaks louder than words ever could. And when you commit to silence, when you refuse to let noise consume your effort, the eventual outcome of your labor becomes undeniable. Success is the language that requires no translation, no justification, no defense. It speaks for itself. People may doubt your words, they may mock your silence, they may even dismiss you entirely, but they cannot argue with results. When you've built something, when you've achieved something, when you've transformed yourself from the inside out, the evidence is irrefutable. It stands there like a monument saying to the world, this is what discipline looks like, this is what silence produces. And here's the paradox, when you finally succeed, it shocks people precisely because you were silent. They didn't see it coming. They weren't prepared. They had written you off. And that's the beauty of working in silence. While others waste their energy on noise, you are compounding your energy in action. By the time they realize it, it's too late to catch up. Your success has already outpaced their talk. But let's think more deeply about what it means to shock with success. It doesn't mean flaunting it, parading it, rubbing it in the faces of others. That's not real shock. That's arrogance, and arrogance is fragile. Real shock comes from contrast. It comes from the disparity between what people thought you were and what you actually became. It comes from the power of unexpected transformation. Imagine the student no one believed in, quietly studying, quietly learning, while everyone else laughed or doubted. And then, years later, that same student stands at the top of their field, unrecognizable from the person they once were. That is shock. It is the shock of undeniable evidence, and it cannot be ignored. This principle is educational in the truest sense because it teaches us about the structure of human nature. We are wired to be distracted by appearances, by noise, by the immediate. But life rewards the opposite: depth, patience, substance. When you redirect your attention away from the shallow pursuit of validation and you focus it instead on the long-term process of building, you align yourself with the fundamental patterns of growth that govern everything in nature. Silence, then, isn't just a personal strategy, it's a universal law. Growth happens in hidden places. Transformation happens where no one is watching. The most powerful forces in the world, gravity, time, erosion, work silently. And yet, their impact is undeniable, and this is why you must resist the temptation to announce every step, to prove yourself prematurely, to let your ambition leak out through words instead of action. Because every time you do that, you weaken the very thing you're trying to strengthen. You make your energy shallow when it needs to be deep. You spread yourself thin when you should be concentrating. Silence consolidates power, noise disperses it. Silence focuses the beam, noise scatters the light. So when we say, work hard in silence, shock with success, we are not merely giving a motivational slogan. We are describing a profound psychological and spiritual process. You must learn to tolerate the discomfort of obscurity, to embrace the anonymity of effort, to accept the loneliness of the unseen struggle. And you must do it not because applause is bad, but because applause is insufficient. It cannot sustain you through the grind. Only discipline can. Only vision can. Only the stubborn commitment to keep working in silence, even when every part of you craves recognition, can lead to the kind of success that shocks the world when it finally arrives. And what you'll begin to notice, if you commit to this path, is that silence doesn't just protect your work, it transforms you as a person. It teaches humility because you realize the world doesn't revolve around your efforts. It teaches patience because results take time. It teaches resilience because in silence you must motivate yourself without the crutch of external validation. And those qualities, humility, patience, resilience, are not just useful, they are essential. They are the bedrock of every lasting achievement. The irony, of course, is that in our culture, silence is almost suspicious. People wonder why you aren't posting every move, why you aren't broadcasting every step. But here's the thing, you don't owe the world an explanation of your process. You owe yourself the discipline of action. And when the results are ready, they won't need an explanation. They will be self-evident. Now let's tie this back to education. Not education in the narrow sense of school, but in the broader sense of learning how to live. Working hard in silence teaches you the most important lesson of all, the separation between appearance and reality. It is the reality of your effort, not the appearance of it, that will determine your future. And once you internalize that lesson, you will stop wasting energy on appearances and start investing everything into reality. And that shift, though subtle, is revolutionary. Because think about it. How many lives are wasted chasing appearances? How many people spend their entire existence trying to look successful instead of becoming successful? How many are obsessed with looking busy, looking productive, looking important, without ever actually building anything of substance? And at the end of it all, what do they have to show for it? Noise. Only noise, but you must be different. You must choose reality over appearance, substance over show, silence over noise, because in the end, the world doesn't remember what you said you were going to do. It remembers what you actually did, and when your success finally emerges, sudden, undeniable, unexplainable to those who weren't paying attention, it will shock not because you shouted about it, but because you didn't.